Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a genuinely fascinating text by a thinker named Zhu Feng. It's called The Self in All Things. And look, we aren't just talking about dry academic philosophy here. We are going to unpack the very fabric of consciousness, reality, and literally your place in the universe. We're going to challenge some incredibly deep-rooted ideas, so get comfortable, because this is going to be a wild ride. Right out of the gate, I want you to ask yourself a question. Genuinely, think about it for a second. Does the self actually exist? I know, it sounds super simple, right? But it's actually the beating heart of one of the greatest mysteries of, well, existence. For literally thousands of years, philosophers, scientists, and spiritual leaders have all agonized over this. Is that feeling of I, that little narrator inside your head, is it real? Or is it just a really, really convincing illusion? To really grasp where Shufeng is coming from, we've got to look at the traditional viewpoint first. You might have heard of the Buddhist concept of anatta, which basically translates to selflessness. It's this idea that absolutely everything out there lacks an inherent self or permanent essence. And the interesting thing, Shufeng actually totally gets this. He admits that if you zoom way, way out and look at the absolute ultimate nature of the universe, the Tao, yeah, this concept completely holds up. From that mega zoomed out perspective, things just possess a kind of Taoic nature.
Okay, let's dive into this because Sufeng drops a massive counter-premise here that just flips the whole script. While he acknowledges that ultimate zoomed-out Tao, he argues that right here in our practical, day-to-day reality, all phenomena actually have selfhood. He is directly challenging that kind of pure, almost nihilistic reading of anatta. He's saying, hold on a second, the self isn't some illusion we need to throw away. It's literally the defining characteristic of everything around us.
So let's move into Section 1, A Universe Without Self. Let's try a quick thought experiment. What would actually happen if we just deleted the self from existence entirely? Honestly, Shufeng paints a pretty bleak picture. Everything just reverts to absolute formless chaos. Think about it. It's the self that gives life its actual meaning and value. Without it, you couldn't feel the joy and passion of nature. You wouldn't feel the ups and downs, the joys and the sorrows of just being alive. There'd be zero motivation to build or create or hope for a better future. The self is the exact thing that gives our universe its structure, its crazy complexity, and all its beautiful layers. Which brings us nicely to Section 2, the origin of reality. If taking away the self destroys the universe, that implies something huge. It means the self isn't just a side effect of reality, it's the foundational building block of it. And we can see the same realization popping up across totally different eras of human thought. Let's start with René Descartes. You know the line, I think, therefore I am. This lines up perfectly with Su Feng. Without the self, there is no consciousness, no thinking. And without that consciousness, the universe effectively just drops to zero. Existence literally requires an observer. This flows right into the philosophy of Seth, who argue that reality is created by the self. It's a really profound idea when you sit with it. If there is no self, how could reality even happen? Think of the self like a projector, and the reality we experience is the movie playing on the grand screen of the universe. And to round out these different perspectives, let's look at Zen Buddhism's sixth patriarch, Huneng. Someone once asked him about a flag blowing in the wind, and he famously said, "It is not the flag moving, nor the wind moving, but the mind moving." What he's getting at is that it's exclusively because of the observing self that we can even experience the wind or the flag at all. Without it, neither of those things would exist in our reality. But Shufeng takes this way beyond just human minds. He argues that literally everything possesses selfhood. The grass has grass nature, flowers have flower nature, mountains have mountain nature, humans have human nature, even Buddhas have Buddha nature. And this is the absolute root of all differences in the world. Even between two individual people, say John and Jane Doe, or as the Chinese proverb goes, Zhang San and Li Si, each person has their own entirely unique selfhood. If everything was totally selfless, where would any of our differences even come from? We'd just be a boring, undifferentiated soup. And hey, modern science actually backs this up in some really wild ways. Take quantum mechanics. It explicitly shows us that the microscopic world literally changes based on the observer's intent. That's the observer effect. And who is the observer? It's the self. Zhu Feng also brings up those fascinating experiments by Japanese scientists where water molecules supposedly changed how they crystallized based purely on human consciousness and intent. For Zhu Feng, this is just more proof that reality is a direct projection of self-consciousness. Let's bring this all the way down to earth for a second. Think about your family or your core group of friends. In those tight circles, the individual self is the direct factor that dictates the vibe, right? Your words, your actions, they directly influence the emotional climate of the whole room. Your selfhood is actively shaping the reality of your everyday life. So yeah, for Zhufang, it's pretty clear. All phenomena absolutely have selfhood. Now, what's really interesting here is the massive paradox this exposes. A lot of people chase spiritual enlightenment by trying to just obliterate their ego. But think about it. If you proudly announce, I have reached the state of selflessness, who exactly is the I making that statement? If you say, I've lost myself and I'm totally at ease, who is feeling the ease? Even when someone is trying to reach supreme enlightenment or go to the Pure Land, they want to go precisely because of their self. Without it, who is taking the trip? So, how does this fit with original Buddhist teachings? Well, it's actually a beautiful reconciliation. When the Buddha taught selflessness, he wasn't trying to just erase you from existence. Not at all. He was trying to help us drop our stubborn attachments, our super narrow viewpoints, and our prejudices. By letting go of that baggage, you can see the true nature of things. You drop the barriers, which lets you roam freely through, as Xu Fang puts it, 36-dimensional spaces. And the ultimate irony here? Reaching nirvana and enlightenment actually serves and benefits yourself in the grand scheme of things. We actually see something super similar in Taoism too. Think of Lao Tzu's famous concept of wu wei, or non-action. It doesn't mean just sitting on your couch and doing literally nothing. The real goal of wu wei is doing nothing yet leaving nothing undone. Xu Feng says this is basically the exact same idea as selflessness. You're operating without all the friction and noise of a stubborn ego, but your true self is still totally present and doing the work absolutely everywhere. So the crucial point is Section 3, small self versus great self. All right, if the self is absolutely essential, but getting too attached to it causes us pain, what's the actual fix? Well, Xu Feng gives us a really vital distinction here. On one side, you've got the small self. This is the version of you that gets bogged down in endless suffering, hardship, and frustrating little attachments. It's a totally ego-driven self. But on the other side, you have the great self. The great self experiences boundless joy, happiness, and supreme enlightenment. The ultimate goal of our lives isn't to fade into nothingness. It's to actively upgrade your consciousness from that struggling small self straight into the massive, joyful great self. We really have to highlight this because chasing absolute nothingness is a huge trap. Pure selflessness just leads to emptiness. It's passive. It's basically extinction. True spiritual cultivation is all about elevating your consciousness and perfecting your awareness. Shui Feng talks about opening your Dharma eyes and Buddha eyes, basically unlocking a higher level of spiritual vision so you can see that all things possess selfhood, and you can recognize your own expansive spiritual presence permeating everything around you. Moving right along to Section 4, Attaining Holographic Thinking. Once you wrap your head around shifting to the great self, Selfing lays out the exact steps to gain what he calls a true perspective. First, you have to look upwards and downwards. Try to view the realm of humans and gods from the perspective of plants and animals. Then flip the script entirely. View the plant and animal kingdoms from the elevated viewpoints of humans and gods. And finally, step 3, you survey all of those realms simultaneously. It's essentially the ultimate exercise in cosmic empathy. And when you manage to hold that massive, multidimensional perspective all at once, you attain what he calls holographic thinking. This is the peak. It's the state where, by surveying all realms, you finally grasp the true nature of everything. You see the self in all things, which makes you so incredibly adept at navigating existence that you eventually attain divine status. In this framework, you are absolutely not empty. You are totally full, vibrating with the selfhood of the entire universe. Which brings us to one final, really provocative thought to close out this explainer. If reality really is a projection of self-consciousness, and your ultimate goal is to cultivate your great self instead of just erasing yourself into a void, how will your great self shape the reality around you today? You are the observer. You are the projector. Your selfhood matters immensely. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I really hope this framework helps you see yourself and the universe in a completely new light.